Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you say when you're a spaceship captain and a bunch of little weird, alien dudes with leaves on their heads invade your ship?
What was the question? I don't know. What do you do?
What do you say?
What do you say?
You say, FML! Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm that joke will make sense in a moment, I promise, host Madelyn.
I'm sorry, my brain stopped processing in the middle of that joke, host Emma.
And thanks for tuning in to this week's show. This week, we're talking about FTL, Faster Than Light, and Pikmin 4. Hence the joke.
Yes, very funny.
I kind of changed it, as I was saying it, I was like, oh, the thing that should happen should be Pikmin related. At first I was going to be like, what happens when you run out of fuel or something.
Pikmin are aliens, right? So
They are aliens.
Yeah.
Maybe. They're probably on Earth.
I guess they're just a universal species. What's
They're
bigger
from
than a
not
universe?
here.
Galaxy, the galaxical species.
Galactic, I think, is
A
the word that
galactic
you're looking for.
species. Yeah.
Galaxical, also pretty good. But that's our Pikmin. Pikmin would also qualify as an old game, but we're talking about Pikmin 4, which is a new game.
Wait, is a galaxy bigger than a universe, or is it the other way around?
Emma.
Sorry.
This is such an embarrassing start to this week's podcast. It's all about aliens.
Okay, going back. They're a universal species.
Yes, they are both a universal species in that they are from the universe. And to hear Miyamoto tell it, they are real and universal.
Yes.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about later. Him talking about that is so weird. What are you saying, dude? He thinks that they're real
knows.
Pikmin.
He believes.
Anyway, we'll get there. We have to start by talking about FTL, Faster Than Light, a game that is going to ruin my life.
Yeah, I saw you yesterday pop up on my Steam. I saw the little pop up.
Yeah.
It says Madelyn's playing FTL Faster Than Light.
Danger, danger.
It does seem like the sort of game you would appreciate.
It's weird, right? Because I just remember when we talked about Spelunky 2 on the podcast, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? I really didn't like Spelunky.
Well, so to connect it, this is a roguelike for our listeners. But I would say it's a pretty different kind of roguelike than Spelunky. I think they officially call it a roguelike, which is really funny.
They don't like the roguelite designation.
I think is that what is the fundamental difference between a roguelike and a roguelite?
I think roguelikes are just purer.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But also roguelite is kind of a bad.
I'm not sure if they had made up the roguelite definition when FTL came out yet.
Yeah, that's correct. It's one of the pioneers of, really. So,
yeah.
But yes, it's a real-time strategy roguelike, or sometimes partially real-time strategy roguelike, from Subsite Games, which at the time, and maybe still, I don't know, was just two dudes originally from 2K Shanghai, Justin Ma and Matthew Davis, who quit their jobs and decided they were going to make a game.
Mm-hmm.
But it came out in 2012 for computers, including Mac. Rejoice.
Yeah, rejoice.
And then 2014 for iPad. Could definitely see how this would be a good iPad game. If you are an iPad gamer, could definitely see this being a good fit for that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And in FTL, you're sort of the captain of a spacecraft, which of course I named McVessel and McCruisin and Mc whatever. I just kept like picking different names for.
Yeah.
And
it's good to have a brand.
It is. You have to have a brand.
Yeah.
You've gotta. And your ship has like some information, some very important information that you need to get to the Federation fleet, to the Allied fleet. But the rebels are after you, which I think is so interesting. I think that's an interesting choice that they've made. I feel like almost always in space stories, the rebels are good. And you know what? Maybe they are good. Like, there's every once in a while, I've definitely run into some rebel ships that are doing good things, and I do wonder about my mission.
Yeah.
But here, it's sort of, turns that usual dichotomy on its head in that you, as like the Empire or whatever, it's not called the Empire, but you know what I mean, are the good guys, and the rebels are the bad guys.
Well, the Wikipedia synopsis makes it seem like they're like, the rebels are like human supremacists, so.
That has not been clear. So I'm sure it's there. I'm sure I will eventually get that text. I mostly just tried to shoot at them.
That's fair.
So we don't talk too much about their feelings about the different alien races. Anyway, FTL, the way it works, right, is you've got kind of like, there's different sectors of space, right? And your ship has an FTL, a faster than light drive, normal sci-fi thing. And like your goal is to get through each sector, jumping from kind of waypoint to waypoint before the rebels, who are kind of encroaching on the territory, trying to find you, catch you. And at each waypoint, there's a random event that happens. So that could be that you stumble on a pirate ship. It could be that there's nothing there. Sometimes there's a store. Sometimes there's a distress beacon, and you have to make a choice about that. Right? Sometimes any number of things. And when you do encounter a situation where you're fighting someone, it switches into kind of a real-time strategy thing where you can have your crew manning different things on your ship. You want to fire your weapons, and you have different kind of allocations of your ship's power that you can put to your shields or your oxygen system or your engine and all of that stuff. And it's very hard. You will die.
Yes, I don't know why I have the impression of this being like the It Twitter game when that doesn't really make sense for me to be aware of in 2012. But I do, and I may be confusing it with like Into the Breach, which was also like the big It indie game for a while, which is their follow-up game to FTL.
Did we talk about Into the Breach?
I don't know why we would have, because it came out in 2015, I think.
No,
didn't
2018.
It?
So it was still eligible. The name
Maybe
rang a bell for some reason, and I couldn't place why.
Well, it was one of the big indie darlings, I believe. And FTL, I believe, was also this way when it released.
Yes. I'm gonna have to go back. Maybe there was some other game with Breach in the title that we talked about, because I feel like it was in the past.
It might have been Into the Breach. But yeah, because I remember like my impression of FTL before going into researching it was like, oh yeah, it's that hard real-time strategy game.
Yeah, which is like probably not, like, I wouldn't emphasize, the real-time strategy is definitely like a big part of it, but it's, I don't know, real-time strategy is a weird genre.
The waypoint choosing seems more like it's like a sort of turn-based system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's kind of a combo. As an indie darling, I mean, FTL was in this era. We're talking about a lot of these lately because we've like reached this time in history in 10 years ago, right? It was in this era of the like super successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Wherein they went to a Kickstarter, they had given themselves a year to make the game, and they like wanted a little bit more time to finish it. So they went to the Kickstarter to raise $10,000, and by the end of it, they had raised $200,000.
Yeah.
which is just not the kind of thing that happens anymore for a game like this. I mean, it does, but I feel like it doesn't happen in the same way as it did in 2012.
Yeah, probably not in the same way. There are definitely still many games that get funded off of Kickstarter. Yes. And many that far exceed their goal as well.
Sure. But I feel like the days of somebody doing a $10,000 Kickstarter for a game, seriously, that a game that then like takes off and becomes something are fewer and further between.
That's fair.
Just as we all become aware of what games cost. I was shocked when they like came for a $10,000 Kickstarter. I was like, what's that gonna be? Right, because we were just talking last week about the Kickstarter where everyone was like outraged that Skullgirls raised so much money for one character, right?
Yeah.
And here right. I was like, what's $10,000 going to buy you? Like an asteroid?
Some groceries.
Yeah, seriously.
That seems really what they were doing in the Kickstarter for, so they could continue working on it.
Yeah.
And then all of their extra stuff was like, oh, we can get people to do the art and music and writing better.
Yeah. It does, the music is very vibey, I have to say, so that Kickstarter did pay off.
It's gotta be, I think, you know?
Yeah. Reminded me quite a bit, I mean, obviously this is probably an influence in the other direction, but reminded me quite a bit of Citizen Sleeper. Not quite the same, but similar space chill vibes.
Mm-hmm.
A man who's only played one space chill game. This game reminds me of. These games are not really the same.
I think it's really funny that you describe both of those as space chill games as well.
Like, the soundtrack, though. A man who's only ever listened to one indie space game soundtrack.
Give it some real Citizen Sleeper vibes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Because I can see how you get, I guess both these games, like a Citizen Sleeper or this, in different ways. You can get into like a flow with them, but also describing them as chill games is maybe putting the wrong idea into the heads of the listeners.
Look, as we all know, I found Citizen Sleeper not that hard.
Yeah, but it wasn't chill.
I mean, I know, you're right. Chill has a meaning in games, for sure.
Yes.
It's not, they aren't cozy. Although maybe they are. Again, maybe they're FTL is in some ways a game that is a cozy game for me. Except it's not, because I'm like, oh, what happened? How did that happen? What? So, but, cozy in that I accidentally will play too much of it.
So my understanding of why it's sort of a rogue-like is that you start out with like one ship unlocked that you can pick from at the beginning, and then as you do things in the campaign, you unlock new ships that you can pick from the beginning. Is that correct?
That is correct, although I have not
unlocked any.
Yeah. Seems kind of hard to do, but yes, there are other ships that you can unlock if you beat the playthrough.
And how long, I mean, I assume you haven't made it to the end or anything, but how long abouts have, like, one run, I guess,
I would imagine if you made it to the end, that one run would be, like, between 45 minutes to an hour. Probably.
Pretty good.
I almost made it. I'm pretty sure, I feel like I read that getting to the end, you have to get through 8 sectors. I almost made it to Sector 5. I was so close. I was at the jump point, and then this ship just absolutely destroyed me. It's like, no, wait, my engines are on fire, my weapons are on fire, help. Rockman, go put out the fires.
Unfortunately, the Rockmen are quite slow.
He's fire-proof, though.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, there have been some real heartbreakers. And there have also been some runs that have just been awful from the start. Like, everything's on fire. We're out of here. We're just gonna die. Or like, oh, I've survived, but I only have one crew member left, so at what cost? It is interesting in this game, and this sort of surprised me as I went, because I sort of expected it to have an impact, and it didn't. There are various points at which you can make what another game would deem like moral choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Morality system impacting choices, where it's like, oh, like you run into a pirate ship that's like harassing a civilian ship, right? Do you leave them alone? Do you attack the pirate ship? Do you wait for the pirate ship to go away and try to ransack what's left of the civilian ship? That kind of thing. Or like you encounter a ship that needs help and you have to decide whether you're going to give them help or not. And in a different kind of game, those would have like alignment impacts in some way, probably. But that's not something, it doesn't seem like that's something that's part of FTL at all, except in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's sort of hard to look into FTL because modding has become such like a essential part of how people still play that game.
Yeah.
But I believe that the original release does not have multiple endings to it.
Huh.
But people have modded stuff in that have ending scenarios.
Gotcha.
So like I don't think that the original one is like, oh, you is tallying your moral choices to give you an ending, but if you were to install one of the popular mods, it might start doing that, for example.
Well, it's frankly going to be hard enough for me to get to the ending, so we are not going to worry about being morally gray.
Yeah, it seems more like a Oregon Trail type. That's right? Oregon Trail.
Well, I don't know exactly what you're trying to say, but Oregon Trail seems like something that could be relevant here. That's
like
for
you're
sure.
Going across, and like you have certain decision points that you could theoretically determine as like moral or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's just like you either make it to Oregon or you don't.
But in Oregon Trail, though, I think that there's the impact of like this is not a choice that you make in Oregon Trail, but like for instance, if on Oregon Trail you made the choice like, yes, we're gonna eat this guy who died because we don't have any food, right?
Sure.
I think that it has an impact on other things about your crew. They're not called crew on Oregon Trail. Your people. Like,
it doesn't impact your crew to eat a fellow crew member? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's not a thing that happens in FTL. But,
okay. Why did you come up with this example then?
I'm talking about an Oregon Trail. An Oregon Trail, like, if I had an example where it's like, oh, I've decided, whatever, that we're gonna, like, kill this beloved horse. Or, I don't know, I can't remember, like, what actual choices you have in Oregon Trail, but you can think of making a choice in Oregon Trail that the people would be unhappy with and that would have impacts on, like, morale for the people, right? Whereas in FTL, your crew doesn't care. Your crew never reacts to, like, we helped these people or we didn't. We took the pirate's bribe or we didn't. We attacked this or we didn't, unless they die. And there are sometimes impacts like, oh, I decided to send some crew members in to help a ship that was being invaded by giant spiders, and one of my dudes died, right? There are positive and negative impacts, for sure, but they don't affect, like, ongoing beyond that, like, this is the outcome of this right here, right now. But I haven't played a lot of Oregon Trail, so I can't really say for sure. Oregon Trail is a great comparison for this, too. Though.
I don't really think there's a, like, morale system in Oregon Trail either. Certainly, maybe in more modern releases. I don't know.
It feels like there should be.
I think it's just, like, your health. And
can't people riot against you? Stuff.
What?
Can't people riot against you?
In Oregon Trail? It's just like you and your children. I don't think the children riot against you, no.
You're not leading a caravan of just children.
Isn't it just your family in Oregon Trail?
No, you're with like a whole... Don't you know anything about American history, Emma?
No, Oregon Trail is just you, your wife, and your 2 kids, I swear.
No, you're with like a caravan.
No.
That's not how people got to Oregon, Emma.
It's not. It's they didn't do it playing a video game in general.
Yes,
so.
They did. They did.
Okay, we can settle this later. I swear you just have like 4 people in Oregon Trail.
check the blog post about this, listeners. I'm sure that you don't go alone to Oregon. That would be
didn't
dumb.
say alone. It's you and your family.
I'm sure it's not just your wagon going to Oregon.
Okay, whatever.
Anyway, in FTL, it is just your ship. Just you out there in space. And FTL, yeah, was super, super critically acclaimed. Some people were like, it's too hard, which is fair, I think. But lots and lots of great reviews, won some awards. And I thought it was interesting that they note in a few interviews sort of the idea of, like, there are a lot of space games in video games, right? Space, there's a lot of that. I think all the way back to Galaga, Space Invaders, whatever. But in those games, you're almost always playing as the pilot, right? And, you know, in a lot of sci-fi stuff, the pilot is, like, also kind of the captain, right? But in this game, you are definitely not the pilot, except that you're plotting the course, kind of generally. But it's instead kind of capturing that, you know, oh no, we're stuck in the trash compactor, how do we get out of here? Kind of Star Wars feeling, rather than the, oh, I am, like, in my little space fighter trying to get into the Death Star kind of feeling. Which was, I hadn't really thought of that as, like, oh, that kind of, like, it's a trap or something's broken space story being something that's a little bit less common in games.
Yeah. We just like horror space games in modern times.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this precedes some of the, like, big wave of indie and not so indie horror space games. There is a lot of good chatter on various game sites about the sort of potential for emergent narrative or, like, alternate ways of approaching this game kind of gameplay in FTL. FTL, if it's not clear from the fact that Emma's like, the humans are human supremacists, and I'm like, had no idea, does not have a lot of, like, very thick storytelling. Can you describe storytelling as thick in contrast to thin?
Sure.
Great. It doesn't have a lot of very thick storytelling in it, but you can definitely, like, because of these morally unpunished but gray choices, or because of whatever, like, you can definitely decide, like, I'm playing as evil people who are always going to make the evil choice, or I'm playing as good people who are always going to make the good choice. Or you can just get very attached to your little dudes and be sad when they get murdered by someone boarding your ship and breaking your oxygen system and stuff. Like me.
Sounds fun.
I'm really selling it. I wasn't sure I was gonna, like, when I saw it was like a roguelike real-time thing like this, I was like, this sounds like it might be a dangerous thing for me, but, like, let's see. And then I played the tutorial, and tutorials for these kinds of games suck. It's a good tutorial. It teaches you how to do things. It's just like, oh, this feels like a lot. And it is a lot, but when you actually play, it's much more intuitive, I think, than it seems like it would be.
Yeah, I feel like, well, with this sort of thing, I feel like it's like the more you play it, the more you understand it, which is sort of the goal of something like a roguelike anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So.
It was just interesting because, like, this game sort of, you know, it, like, some of their inspiration for making this game was out of, like, going to GDC and, like, entering it at some competitions and that sort of thing. And I was like, that's so interesting because this feels like the kind of game that I would, like, try to play the demo of at PAX and, like, might not hit. You know, might be one of those games we come back in the PAX recap and be like, I don't know, like, didn't really get this in this setting.
I mean, I don't think that's quite how, like, the award stuff works.
I know
yeah.
It's not how the award stuff works, but it got, you know, buzzy too, so people had to have played it and liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely credited, like, entering it in things as something that motivated them to continue to develop it. Both for, like, the positive reinforcement and also because you have to submit a certain thing at a certain deadline. So yeah. It had to get done by that point.
Yeah. That's probably an overlooked part of that for some of these very small studios, huh?
What do you mean?
Like that overlooked value of conferences and competitions.
That they have to finish something by a certain point?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Oh, there was at least one notable, is part of the Pikmin interview that I was reading. Not to transition yet, but Miyamoto was like, I went to like GDC or E3 or something to talk about it, and the other developers were like, yeah, you talked about it like it was done, and he was like, well, I had faith it would be done, probably. It was like, nice. If you're Nintendo, it doesn't have to be done. But I'm really enjoying FTL. Probably in a bad way. Just make sure I don't spend like all of my flights playing this.
I mean, why not? You know? You need something to do on flights.
I know, but I'm supposed to play Kentucky Route Zero and like work.
That's fair.
But instead, I want to make my little spaceship go pew pew pew.
That's fine. That's all right.
Yeah, so I would, if you're into any of these kind of like roguelike, this game was making me like think of my month and a half, just like descending into Binding of Isaac,
mm-hmm.
you know, and I was like, uh-oh, this is not a month. This is a month where this is going to be a tempting escape. And it's
it really is interesting. You are clearly a very much a roguelike person. It's just you do not like Spelunky. You're an anti-Spelunky person.
I'm bad at Spelunky.
Yeah.
And Spelunky makes me feel bad. Here's the thing. Spelunky makes me feel bad about being bad at it.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. Maybe if I went back, I would be better and or would like it more. But at the time, it just felt like I wasn't ever making progress in Spelunky. And, like, there's no way that I could ever make enough progress in Spelunky, as opposed to in, you know, Binding of Isaac or FTL, where it's like, oh, this is, like, really hard, but I am getting better at it. I don't know. Maybe this isn't true for Binding of Isaac, but for FTL, it's like, oh, I'm, like, learning the strategy of it. Whereas at Spelunky, it's just like, oh, this is, like, it's too gamey. There's too much controls here.
There's too much controls?
I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. It's been too long since I played Spelunky. I'm going to have to go back and do it for science at some point. Because Spelunky 2 just felt like, oh, I'm playing World 1 like over and over and over and over, and I'm never getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like games that I'm bad at them. I hate to say it. That's the thing.
You hate to say it.
But what do we think Hades 2 will be out for real in what, like 3 years, 4 years?
I don't know. It's early access next year, they've said.
I know that, but presumably only on Steam and only for PC, so that's no good for me.
Yeah. They said they're releasing it with
Hades.
more content than they released the original Hades when it went into early access. So they're further along than they were when they released the first game in early access.
They better be. They already made a whole game. Sure. You know, if they're not reusing some assets here, then this was a bad idea and they shouldn't be doing it. That's my hot take. I'm sure that they need that from me.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I have to decide whether I want to, like, if it's finally been far enough away from Quick Boyfriend playing Hades compulsively before we played Binding of Isaac compulsively. It's just bad.
Because you need more games?
Because I need more games.
Madelyn's suffering from a real dearth of games. Is dearth's none, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, real dearth of games.
Somebody needs to come and do my work for me, please. Please.
Well,
maybe the Pikmin can.
Speaking of little guys who'll do work for you.
Pikmin 4. Also in probably a real-time strategy game. We never talk about real-time strategy games. Now there's 2 of them.
This is, I feel like, also a slightly different type of real-time strategy, though.
Look, I'm not saying it's the same as FTL. That would be weird. But it's just funny. I was like, that's so weird. This is not it's not like it's two action adventure games. The hat has been weird about this lately. I think you're cheating. I think you're scripting it.
I am not scripting it. Believe me. It's Pikmin's a weird little franchise for Nintendo, I feel like. But Pikmin 4 released this year, like in
July.
Yep. Yeah. After many years in development purgatory.
It was almost done in 2015.
Yeah. Apparently.
Which made it even funnier when they talked about, like, oh yeah, Miyamoto for the first one went out there and, like, pretended it was done when it wasn't. Yeah. And then in 2015, he's like, yeah, it's basically done. Yeah. And now here we are.
So Pikmin 4 is pretty similar to the previous Pikmins of you're a little guy. And in this, you actually get to design your own little guy. So you make your own little castaway as a character creator, I guess. And you've landed on a planet, and you're looking for previous series protagonist, Captain Olimar, who has disappeared.
As he always does. Captain Olimar just crashes his little ship.
Yes, but this time you're not playing as Olimar. You have to go find Olimar.
I know. I'm just saying. This guy, he crashes. That's his thing.
Yeah. But then the rescue team that's sent after them also runs into trouble and crashes. So the player character has to go in and save the rescuers and also Olimar. So real Plan C scenario here.
It certainly is. It has big FTL energy.
So on this planet, there are little guys called Pikmin, and there's many different colors of Pikmin, and each of these colors of Pikmin can be used to do different things. And in this one, there's also a weird little two-legged dog-like creature named Oichi. Ochi?
I think it's gotta be Oichi. Yeah.
Who can also help you solve puzzles and traverse the environment just like the Pikmin can. So you go around, you collect Pikmin, you sacrifice them for your goals, and you rescue your lost, team members.
You're right in saying that Pikmin is such a fascinating little Nintendo franchise.
Well, because, it's quite hard for children, at least. I think as you become an adult, it is maybe easier. Which I guess isn't that weird for Nintendo. I'm sure Mario is maybe hard when you're a child as well. But, some of the earlier games have, time limits and, scary stuff at night. And also, it's not a very intuitive, system, a game system of and also you murder little cute guys.
A lot.
For your own purposes.
Send them to their deaths a lot.
Yeah.
And, have them carry back the bodies of their enemies a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird. It's very dark. Well, at the same time being, I was reading some stuff that was Pikmin, when it came out, the original one in 2001, was it was weird, right? Because this was an era of kind of gritty aesthetics in a lot of games, right? Diving into that muddy realism. And meanwhile, here's Pikmin, but it's little dudes, tiny little dudes with plants on their head, bright colors. Well, at the same time being there's a lot of murder and yeah. I will say they seem to definitely have taken steps in Pikmin 4 to make it more approachable for first-time players and just a little bit more forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Right, a lot of talk about the new replay mode.
Yes, there's a little system where you can rewind a little bit, essentially. I guess sort of similar, their emulation games have this as well, where you can just sort of rewind the game a little bit as a way to, I guess, combat any, old game jank.
Yeah.
So that makes it, if you really mess up and you don't want to deal with it, you can go back and try something else.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of players griping about, because like these early Pikmin games were pretty hard, because the first one you only have 30 days to gather up all the parts in your spaceship that you need to leave. And so there's a lot of like, oh man, like I had the perfect plan, and then I made one little mistake at the end, and like half my Pikmin didn't make it back, and now I'm like having to rebuild my Pikmin army.
Yeah. I read they had some Ask the Developer stuff for
I read those
Pikmin
too.
4.
I love Nintendo Ask the Developer. They're always so funny.
Which
I love how afraid they are of Miyamoto. Did you read that part?
I don't remember.
They were like, he came in, he was like, I say something like, I'd be careful about what I say, because if I come in and I say something like, the sound effect, then everybody freaks out. They're like, what is it? What's wrong with the sound
I did
effect?
read that. Of like, they're like, I don't know if he wanted us to have footsteps for the Pikmin. And I'm still afraid. Yeah. But they call this genre for Pikmin, like, or practice, I guess, Dandori. Which
they talk about it like a genre, which is funny because Pikmin is the only one, but yes.
Yeah. Of like planning and thinking about your efficiency in advance. It's like making a plan to do well is sort of what it means, according to the definition given on the Ask the Developer. Yeah. But he was saying that people find it difficult because of how the controls work and the sort of depth of the gameplay Miyamoto was. And he wanted Pikmin 4 to make these points like interesting rather than difficult.
Mm. Which is a tricky line to walk.
Yeah.
I also like how in all these interviews, Nintendo still seems very focused in these interviews, sometimes the developers, in being like, these games are good for you in your life.
Yeah.
Like, they're definitely like, if you practice Dandori here, this, like, efficient planning in Pikmin, you'll start to do that in your real life as well. And, like, we set up the game this way so, like, it can be something that parents and kids can talk about. And, like, this game is good for you. And it's, like, so interesting, because, you know, Pikmin is, like, a big Nintendo franchise, right? It's not Mario, but it's big. And it would be weird. It's just weird to think of, like, I don't know, like, what, like, Square Enix being like, or I don't, like, I'm trying to think of, like, what's, like, a secondary-ish franchise for someone, but, like, someone being like, yeah, like, Final Fantasy Stranger in Paradise, like, when you're a stranger, you'll know better how to make your life into a paradise.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, whenever we look into Nintendo games, there's always, like, some, like, I did this as a child and I thought it would be a fun game. Yeah. It's, like, always, like, the inspiration behind the initial creation. Like, even something like Zelda, which is its most, like, fantasy-bent series, I guess. Like, more traditional fantasy-bent series is, like, oh, yeah, I wandered in the mountains a lot as a kid. And I wanted to recreate that in video game form, which is so funny. I don't know why that's so funny, but it is.
This one seemed to have been inspired by Miyamoto looking at ants in his garden.
Yeah. It's always something like that. Like, Miyamoto just, like, lived outside, I guess, as a child.
He just, like, sits and looks at things. It's weird. It's weird.
He's just a chill guy, I guess.
I mean, the original one also came out of, like, they were excited, you know, as hardware was kind of leveling up to be like, oh, we can have a ton of characters on screen now. So, like, what's a game that we could make that would use that? I want to circle back to the game, but one more thing from this interview that I mentioned earlier that I just have to talk about is, again, this quote from Miyamoto where he says over and over again that Pikmin are real. That they're real. I just want to read some of this quote. Right? Translated from Japanese. Right? But he says, furthermore, I want people, he's like talking about like, why do Pikmin stand out, and like, what do you want people to take away from this game, right? Mm-hmm. And he says, furthermore, I want people to have this real sense that Pikmin are all around us, that they aren't just fantasy creatures. Pikmin have no set age or nationality. They have a unique presence as creatures that exist somewhere on Earth. That's not the case with Mario. We know he's of Italian descent in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but it's not like you could bump into him walking down the street because he lives in the world of Mario. Haha. In fact, I consider Pikmin to be Nintendo's most global characters. Since the promotional campaign we launched 10 years ago, we've been saying, Pikmin are all around us. I think we've finally reached a point where people can find Pikmin in various places, not just in their imaginations. I hope more and more people become aware of Pikmin and play Pikmin games. Is he good?
I read that as somewhat facetious, for one thing.
I mean, I know, but
like, also it's like, oh, we can find the little bits of magic all around us is also what that sounds like. So
I know, but are we
like,
sure?
Yeah, like it's a little different than Mario. Of like, it's like when you like sort of believe in fairies, right?
Yeah.
Of like, you can sort of believe in them even though you don't see them. Versus Mario is like a guy, right?
Yeah.
You can't, like, believe that Mario is around you.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't take it too seriously.
I get it, but are we...
Well, maybe he does. Maybe he really does believe in Pikmin.
Are we sure?
But I think that is also, like, it's like, believing in fairies in the same sort of way.
Are we sure he isn't sending little Pikmin minions?
Those are the Nintendo ninjas that will kill you if you so much as post a note of Mario music on YouTube.
That's correct.
They will send you to prison.
That's really what he's talking about. He's like, the Pikmin are watching you.
The Pikmin are all around you. And they will shoot ice at you.
I will throw 100 Pikmin at you. Personally. Anyway, to recap the Pikmin series a little bit, right? The first one came out in 2001 for the GameCube, and there was Pikmin 2 in 2004, and there was a big gap, and Pikmin 3 came out in 2013, and then another 10-year wait for Pikmin 4. In the meantime, there was, I think, Nintendo DS, or Nintendo...
Yeah, Pikmin Bloom.
No, Pikmin Bloom is an AR game. There was also a handheld.
Oh, okay.
Hi Pikmin, or sorry, Hey Pikmin, something like that. The Pikmin Bloom did just come out, like a year and a half ago, something like that. Where, yeah, this is probably what he means by Pikmin all around us, right? Is that
that's
you
true.
Can send your little AR Pikmin out to, like, gather treasure for you in the real world.
Yeah.
Which there's plenty of funny stories of people being like, yeah, I sent my Pikmin out while I was on vacation, and they're, like, still making their way home.
They got lost. They're gone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently it, according to some sources, which may or may not be reliable, but apparently it restarted development in 2019, and seems to, I assume it progressed relatively smoothly from there, minus COVID, because that seems like a pretty reasonable development cycle. But whatever they were making in 2015, they apparently did not like it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Changed their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of the first ones they made on Unreal, too.
Yes, it is on the Unreal Engine.
Fascinating times for engines, isn't it?
People love to restart games development on Unreal Engine.
Which is kind of ironic, of course, because Pikmin are real.
You're right. They shouldn't be made in Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Made in Real Engine.
Yeah, but Pikmin has never been quite as popular. It's been like a weird... It's weirdly like a cult favorite, even though it's a Nintendo game. Like, it's a different scale of cult favorite.
Well, it's certainly... It's not a straightforward genre like platformer or action-adventure.
What's more straightforward than Dandori?
Some people don't like efficient planning, Alan.
What's more straightforward than, they call it, AI action game? What's more straightforward than task management game? All of these so exciting. Grab ya.
So it doesn't exactly have the universal appeal of Nintendo's more flagship series.
Yes. Plumber Adventure and Silent Guy wax things.
Well, just take out jumps and wax. That's what people like to do.
Yeah.
They like to jump and they like to hit things.
You're right. You're right.
Maybe if they'd given Olimar a glider.
Ugh. Pikmin with gliders. Can you imagine?
Pikmin made out of gliders.
Pikmin made gliders made
Gliders
out of Pikmin.
made out of Pikmin is what I meant to say.
One of the big things in Pikmin lore is whether the planet that the Pikmin are on is like actually Earth and they just don't know it.
Well, they go to different planets, don't they?
But I think this planet is the same as Pikmin 1.
Oh, okay.
I've seen at least a few things being like, this is sort of like an alternate retelling of Pikmin 1.
I see. Well, I mean, the planet they are on in Pikmin 4 does have, and I assume many of the planets from Pikmin does have, like, Earth stuff on it. So
Yeah.
It is possible it is post-apocalyptic Earth, I suppose.
Or
not.
Pre-Earth. Oh, I guess if the
Or
SP is
pre-Earth.
there, maybe not pre-Earth. Or Nintendo is
If
just
they've got
making the
soda
point-
cans, I don't know if it would be pre-Earth.
You're right. I take it back. But maybe Nintendo is just trying to make the point that anywhere that intelligent life would arise, a Nintendo would be founded and create the Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I think that's also a possible interpretation.
That's fair. That's right. I feel like this one can't be like, in the middle of Earth, though, because the little dog creatures would be visible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, you could make the argument that, like, the whatever Olimar is and the Pikmin are, like, too small and you wouldn't really process them, right? But the dog thing, that's the size of, a tarantula.
There are some weird-looking dogs.
Yeah, but they aren't that small. Like, they're big enough to see, but not small enough to be a dog.
Now that
Wait,
you're
are too
saying
small
this,
to be a dog.
I think that I had a dream last night because I was researching Pikmin. I think I had a dream about being somewhere where there were a bunch of dogs and there were some tiny, like, frighteningly tiny ones. And it didn't make sense. I was like, not like normal tiny, like very tiny. Not like Chihuahua tiny. And I was like, what if I step on one? What if I step on one? I was very nervous. I think that Pikmin crawled into my ears.
It did. They're real.
They're real.
They came to give you a weird dream.
They did.
Pikmin 4 is also a co-op.
Well, sorta. It's co-op for your, like, 8-year-old. Yeah.
Sure. What does the second player do?
I think that there have been previous Pikmin games where the second player, like, literally is also commanding Pikmin. And you're, like, working together. In this one, it's just, like, they can, like, help throw Pikmin, I think. Something like that. It's, like, more of an assist mode.
There is also a competitive
yes, that is
game
true.
mode. Dandori Battle.
Dandori Battle. Battle of organization.
Yeah.
Every day. It's a Dandori battle, really. When you think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But all the Pikmins now are available on the Switch. Which is a weird Nintendo thing to have done.
Didn't they skip 3?
I thought the 3... everything that I've read is like, they're all available. So maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe it's through one of the... Because I know that they released Pikmin 1 and 2 for purchase before Pikmin 4. Maybe Pikmin 3 is available through one of their emulated things. Or maybe it was already on there. Who knows?
Well, you can play all of them. So you get to choose how much time pressure or research pressure or ability to turn back the clock you want in your Pikmin experience. You also get to choose how many colors of Pikmin. They consistently add new colors of Pikmin to every game. This one we got like glow Pikmin for the first time because they've got these night battles. So, lots of colorful little guys. And they live in onions.
Yes, they had previously released Pikmin 3 Deluxe for Nintendo Switch. You're right.
So that's, it's your rare opportunity with Nintendo to be able to play all of the games in a series.
Their new thing is just like remaking older games, though, so.
They're getting old,
They are.
All those Nintendo dudes, they're like, I gotta go back to this thing I was making when I was 30 or whatever.
Yeah, because the last Nintendo Direct really was like, oh, here's the remake of this Nintendo game. Here's the remake of this Nintendo game.
Look, they know who has disposable income. The kids aren't buying.
You're right.
It's the Pikmin lovers. The Pikmin lovers are ready to buy.
They're ready to buy.
Is it embarrassing that, I was aware of Pikmin, but I feel like I had never really internalized what the Pikmin games were?
No, I don't think that's embarrassing.
That's good.
I was aware that you gather a lot of them, and also that they die. And sort of also that, there are different colors that you use for different purposes.
Well, I would like to get myself some Pikmin, I think.
To help you with your efficient planning and organizing?
Yeah. Although I think it's more, I don't know that the Pikmin are especially efficiently planned and organized. You have to efficiently plan them and organize them.
Yes, but then they do the manual labor for you.
Yeah.
You just have to focus on the efficient planning and organizing.
Which Pikmin are good at typing?
That's for the next game, some Chrome Pikmin.
Chrome Pikmin.
They're good at technology.
That would be pretty good.
Yeah, this one added Glow Pikmin, which you can take out at night, and Ice Pikmin, I believe, which are Ice Pikmin.
Yeah, they are what they sound like. Well, is it time for a real-time strategy mash?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
You could do something where you are like the command ship and you have a bunch of, littler ships that you have to sort of command to do things.
Mm-hmm.
That could work.
It feels like that has to already be a game.
I don't know. There's only one Dandori game, Alan.
You're right. I'm sorry. There's 4 Dandori games, but yes.
You're right.
One Dandori series. No, I mean anything space, like little space minions.
Make a Toy Story branded one, but the Pikmins are those little space alien guys. Make
a Minions branded one, and they're minions.
That's awful.
Make a lot of money. Print money.
You would print. You know what? You would print money if you made a game. Well, I don't know. Would the kids want to play one where you have to order the minions around to do things like this?
Well, no. Here's the thing, though. I feel like it would attract all audiences, right?
Really? Are you sure? Why?
So basically, it's just Pikmin, but we mod it so that all the Pikmin are minions.
Okay.
And people who love Minions will be excited because it's a Minions game and they'll buy it. And people that hate Minions will be excited because they'll get to throw a dozen Minions to their death at any given moment.
I see.
So I really feel like it's the game that could unite this culture war.
I see the vision.
But I like the Toy Story themed one too. That would work as well. Because you're trying to do the space thing, which makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So what?
Are minions from space? Or are they... I guess they don't have to be from space. Minions are also all around us.
They are. I assume they're from space. They only have one eyeball. So they have to be...
No, there's a Minions movie where they go through history doing evil things and they conveniently are frozen during World War II or something. I remember that.
Not.
That's what happens at the beginning of the Minions movie. They show them what the Minions were doing throughout history.
What?
I don't think they really make a point of it, but I remember when that came out, they're they conveniently skipped World War II, huh?
Okay.
They're like, maybe the minions shouldn't do anything during our cute, marketable minions shouldn't do anything during that point of history.
Yeah, maybe not. No, whatever game that we mash up here, whatever our mashup is, it has to be pretty difficult, right? Death has to be involved, ordering little dudes around.
I feel like it is probably something like I first suggested, where you're like the command ship of an army, and you've got like all your little other ships following you as you move through the thing.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like FTL, but you have like a visualization of all the little ships following you, and you send them for tasks, I guess.
I could also see it being like kind of like a NASA mission control thing. Like,
yeah.
There's a ship that needs to be rescued, and you've got a bunch of other ships and things that you can, and people on the base maybe that you can make run around to do things too. Like somebody's got to be there to answer the phone, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these mashups seem, anything space themed feels like somebody's probably already done that to me, always. I'm like, any possible game about space, someone has already made it.
No, they're all space horror games. You would think that, but no. We only make space horror. We don't make any other space genre.
Well, okay then.
Maybe Slime Rancher is the other space one that is not horror. Although, I guess it depends on your interpretation of horror.
You could really just take FTL and turn my little dudes into Pikmin, and that would work.
But the key part, though, is you need a lot of them, right? You don't have, like, 100 crew members at a time in FTL, do you? Unless I've misunderstood.
I wish I did. That would make my life a little easier if I did.
Yeah. I guess you could do it like that, but they all have, like, one brain cell. And so you have to send a ton of them to do the jobs anyway.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really fundamentally change the game very much. It's just increases the numbers.
But they would look like Pikmin.
They would look like Pikmin. And so you'd be even more devastated when they died.
Well, I'm going to circle back to your simple one. Yeah, I think directing fleets and stuff. But they'd have to be like cute ships. They'd have to be funky, cool ships.
Yeah, they could be little beans.
Little beans. Agreed. Well, on that note, listener, that brings us to the end of another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
If you enjoyed the show, you should follow us on social media. We're on, I almost went into the podcast service there. I'm so tired. My brain was like, we're on Apple Podcasts, that great social media network. We're on Facebook, Twitter. When are we switching off of that? Instagram.
Never. We're always calling it Twitter.
And YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog, featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. But most importantly, so importantly, I tried to say it when I was talking about social media, you should subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, although I think I read Google Podcasts might be shutting down. Another disaster for my, baked-in recitation here.
Is it just going back to, Google Play Music?
I don't know. I didn't read it. I just saw a post. I didn't actually read it. I saw a post and I thought, that's going to be hard for me. And then I left it alone. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you found the podcast today, subscribe to Talk This. Next week it's my side quest. Really? Already?
Heck yeah, already.
What the heck? Side quest about games that, suck your life in.
That what your life
that
is?
Suck your life force.
Okay.
Anyway.
Good.
Stay tuned for that. Emma, what are we talking about in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, for our old game, we're talking about BioShock Infinite.
Oh boy.
We've talked about BioShock before, but not BioShock Infinite.
Uh-huh.
Which is now 10 years old, which, good God. And for our new game, we are talking about Redfall. So it's just going to be a delight.
Great episode coming up in 2 weeks. I might have Bioshock Infinite.
I think it might be on the PS3.
That's what I was thinking, too.
Yes. Because I did play some of it and then stopped when I got violently motion sick.
Oh, great. I'll look forward to that. I'll boot up the old vintage console.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week's show. Emma, do you have a nice little sign-off?
This week, I hope that you managed to find some of the Pikmin all around us.